Okay, for more about the innovation in the agricultural space, I'm joined by Devi Murthy. She's in Bangalore, and she runs a company developing small-scale solutions for mechanization in rural India. We also have Clas Neumann of SAP. He knows a little bit about money and going into the right places. And also Moses Kimani, who you just saw in that report, is with us too. Moses, impressive stuff. I want to start with you, just about what you're doing over there. It's really cool to see drones and what they're doing in terms of helping farmers. How can an innovation like yours be made broadly available to smallholder farmers in the rural context?
Thank you. So it's very important to make this information broadly available to smallholder farmers. In our case, we use satellite-based crop health analysis. And in order to enable the farmers to adapt to this information, we break it down to them into very simple steps, such as when to plant, when to irrigate, when to scout for pests and diseases, because this data can be overwhelming. Moreover, we also make sure that it has to be suited to a small feature phone, so that they don't have to have a smartphone, but even a farmer with a feature phone can know it's now planting time, it's irrigation time, or there's a pest outbreak, so that it's adaptable to everyone.
That's right, because you've got to make it accessible and palatable, and like you're saying, you've got to work with the resources that people have. Great stuff. Devi, I want to come over to you now. Just tell us a little bit about the small-scale solutions for mechanisms that you're creating in rural India. Perhaps just label the point about the impact that you've seen it make.
So I think our approach is a bit unique in the sense that we're trying to build not necessarily products, but platforms where we're encouraging farmers to look at a single machine that can do multiple operations. And so it saves input costs for farmers. We're able to deliver more than 40% overall input cost savings to farmers. And so far, we've worked with about 20,000 farmers across India, and we've been able to do more than 1 million euros in savings for the community.
Yeah, that's incredible. Staggering numbers there, Devi. Clas, I mean, you're in an interesting position, right? Because from where you stand and the company you're from, you've got a good overview of the experiences that are taking place in the Indian context, or maybe the Asian context, and then also in Africa. And just talk to us about how these two regions can come together, can be brought together, and how maybe players in Europe could help facilitate that south-to-south cooperation, so to say.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I indeed believe there's lots of potential, because on the one hand side, there have been relations built between Africa and India for, maybe even hundreds of years, but definitely very strong throughout the last century. And one can build on those strong relations between many African countries and the Indian subcontinent. Also, of course, India has shown how you can drive a digital education and make it also usable then for local farming. So I think farming situations specifically for smallholders in India are not so much different from Africa. So probably some of the smart solutions from India could also go to Africa. And then, of course, being adapted there. And and as Devi said, also probably we can use platforms to make these solutions better available.
Yeah, I mean, so better available, I guess part of that means investment, Clas, and that's money. But of course, money is very sensitive to conditions, and these conditions need to be improved in certain examples. So perhaps talk to us about maybe the African context, because we know that private sector investment is very limited in terms of what actually goes through to Africa and gets to the sector. So what needs to change in that regard so that more money can flow into that space?
Yeah, also here, in terms of investment, I think transparency is key. It means we need to understand, of course, where does the investment go. And for the transparency in the end, also digital solutions can help. We have made the experience that countries often start with digitalizing the revenue department of the government to make sure that they have better transparency, what happens with the money, where it's spent. And that also would give confidence then to investors, not only private investors, but also the government investors and funds and so on.
Devi, I just want to come back to you now, because I wondered how, in the rural context, right, we can improve getting sort of leveraging these opportunities for people to get involved in the startup scene? How can that happen?
You mean in India or Africa or generally?
Generally, and I guess in your space, using your example with everything that you're doing.
I think one of the areas where I feel there is definitely gaps is research and development. We need to be looking at unique solutions because the subset of customers that we're trying to approach are incredibly unique. And understanding their context and their behaviors and being able to come up with solutions that make it easier for them to adopt, to a large extent, is on innovators. But there is a large gap on more and more innovation happening, and a large reason for that is definitely lack of funding.
Yeah, Moses, I guess I'll come... Sorry, Devi. So please finish off. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so while innovation funding is definitely critical, I would also say cross-border learning and maybe some amount of cross-border distribution is something that could definitely gain from having more resources available.
Okay, great. So just picking up from where Devi's left off, Moses, very quickly, in terms of the experience you've had trying to get funding, just give us a sense of how that could be made easier for people like yourself in your context.
Great. So raising funding is definitely a challenge. We've faced this challenge very positively at Lentera. We're very fortunate to have angel investors and won a couple of grants. But I can say every time I talk to investors, they tell me that they're not getting enough investor-ready companies. And whenever I talk to my fellow entrepreneurs, they say it's very difficult to get investors investing in them. So
I can see Clas agreeing with you there.
Seems to be complicated. Yes, the bottleneck, getting as many young people investor ready, getting their companies to a point where they can accept external investment. So the systems in place, the management, the board of governance, and all the structures that will make an investor comfortable to invest in an African startup.
Okay, that's interesting, and I guess that's one for our policymakers, right? If you're on the policy side of things and you're listening to this conversation, right? So you've got the people on the ground and they're saying, look, we've got the ideas, you're seeing it, Devi, Moses. And then Clas comes out and says, well, these guys aren't ready. Before I can give money here, I need to be able to make a case to shareholders. So it's almost as if there is a space there that needs to be occupied to help these people get sort of ready for the money that could come their way. Devi, Clas, Moses, thank you so much for your insights. Really, really much appreciated. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.